Hi, and welcome to Rhino. Uh, I'm going to do these videos. I think it's easier for everybody to learn with a video. You can follow the video, you can stop it wherever you need to, you can go at your own pace, and always refer back to it whenever you're confused about something. Of course, I'll be here if you have any questions, so just put your hand in the air and I'll run over to help you out. So Rhino is fantastic software for designers. It's usually used in architecture, interior design, and also jewelry. A lot of jewelry designers use Rhino. I think it was originally actually developed for jewelry design. It's kind of similar to AutoCAD. It's a precise way of modeling, but unlike Revit or other BIM software, you don't have to make a lot of decisions about construction when you start modeling things in Rhino. So I use it for almost every project. And it's fantastic because you can start with something very blocky and sketchy. And as you go through the design process, your model becomes more detailed, your renderings become more detailed and more precise. Um, and the software kind of helps you evolve your design as you go along. So I thought I'd start just by showing you some of my work that I use Rhino for, and also some work from a firm that I admire that I know uses Rhino. So let's see. This is a board from a competition that I just did, and it's just Rhino and Photoshop. So you can see these objects here are these kind of slices that people can sit in. The competition was portable reading rooms. So you're seeing it in a top view here, and then you're seeing them again from below over here. And this is just rendered in Rhino and then manipulated in Photoshop. And these construction sketches were created in Rhino, and then I brought them into Illustrator to create these diagrams showing how the objects would be fabricated. Let's see. Coffee table I designed for friends. A Rhino is really great for furniture. It's quite easy and also very good with applying and manipulating materials. A quick sketch showing a living room, mostly kind of the size and proportion of this piece of art related to some of the other pieces that were chosen. This is a food hall I'm working on. We're obviously pretty early in the process, so materials have not been chosen for the furniture. In fact, the furniture itself hasn't really been selected. Um, but using a sketch like this, applying a couple materials that you know are important. Obviously, this mural behind the bar is kind of a focal point, and then populating it with people brings the space to life for the client and really helps move your design forward really quickly. A sketch like this doesn't take long to do, but is so important to having a conversation about how the space works. This is an addition in California, and one thing that was important here was how the light enters the space. It's very bright, so needed to make sure that we were going to have problems with glare on the screen here or the television here for either relaxing or for working. Rhino is really good for examining the sun, and you can set the location of your project and see exactly how sunlight will enter the space. This is a piece of millwork for a project that I'm working on. This is more detailed, so further along in the process, and looking at kind of the proportions of the piece itself, the filler pieces, the frames on the cabinet doors, and kind of the small, delicate hardware. This one is that same project. This is the bathroom. So this was rendered in V-Ray because I wanted to see how the light would come in from the window and what that would look like against the tile and against this decorative plaster treatment. And I was also pretty focused on the design of this vanity and how it relates to the room on the whole. This is another project. This is the living room, and it was really all about these moldings. So it's a brownstone, so this is supposed to be in keeping with kind of the historic details of the house. The moldings are all from Dykes, none of them are custom, but I was able to use the drawings that Dykes provides to specify exactly what we needed and show how those moldings would fit together. So a drawing like this is important for the clients, but it's also important for the contractor. Because it's just easier to see how things get applied in 3 dimensions. And it saves so much time to show, this is what the sill looks like by this window. This is how it interacts with the casing. This is how the baseboard dies into that casing. This is a section from the same project. I think I like this drawing. I like the way the section looks. I like that it highlights the dramatic all black stair. Kitchen from that same project. Rhino is really important for me as a designer because I want to make sure that the space is functional. So the layout makes sense. Refrigerator here, range, sink, plenty of workspace. And as you're doing that, you also get to start looking at what the materials might be, having these cabinets be 24 inches going over the hood makes kind of a dramatic statement. And then you get to play around with the materials, so trying out different stone and seeing how those different slabs might look and how they relate to the material of the cabinets themselves. And also it was something I remember doing this project and working on this model, and then I noticed that there is kind of the second wall here, and it was sort of an opportunity to do something playful. So have this be kind of like a surprise wallpaper that you only see when you go to the back of the house and turn around. Programming. So I always use Rhino for these program diagrams. This one, of course, doesn't have the labels with it, but we'll do these for your projects as well. It's really fast and kind of shows these volumes. Each volume is a different thing. I think orange here is like living space, green bedrooms, blue bathrooms, red kitchen. And this is early on in your design process. You're showing kind of different options for how to lay something out before you've actually started drawing walls and doors. Yes. Okay, this was a nightclub that I worked on, which unfortunately never made it past DD. It didn't get built, but we had a lot of fun doing it. This was one of the first sketches that we did. Basically, just made a really quick wireframe in Rhino and manipulated it in Photoshop to show sort of the layout of the space, and then quickly rendering something that gives a mood and a feeling for what it feels like to be there. And it was quite successful. The client sort of understood what the space would actually be like. Further along in the process, we started getting into materials. So furniture, quite specific, sort of the size, the layout of this winding banquette as it kind of wraps around the room, and the materials of the existing joists and this multicolored cork floor we were specifying. But this is still just a sketch, so nothing's been rendered in V-Ray here. It's just a sketch from Rhino, which was printed as an image and manipulated in Photoshop. So it's still pretty effective in terms of time. It doesn't take that long to create, but really good value in terms of what you're able to communicate. And so this one's rendered a little more heavily. It's looking at the quality of light inside the main dance area. So what do these pin spots look like? What does the light look like when it reflects off of these melted disco balls? What do you see? What do you not see? And this is something that you can do really well in V-Ray. And this was the stair. I think I'm most sad that the stair didn't get built. It was something that I started modeling in Rhino, and then as I went along, kind of these ideas presented themselves. One thing that's great about V-Ray is you can see how the light interacts with the materials around it. So kind of illuminating this mesh at the back of the stairs, and also getting reflected in the glass that serves as the railing. So that's some of my work. A firm I really admire, and I know that they use Rhino, is MN. And I pulled up a few of their projects. They do a lot of really gorgeous restaurants, and you can almost see the way that Rhino informs some of their decisions. So where was it? The way the materials are applied here, the way you can see through them, the way you notice the reflections, all of this is stuff that shows up when you're modeling and rendering in Rhino and allows you to make the best possible decisions for the space. It shows you opportunities that you don't see until you've modeled the space. Something like this, where there's a light underneath the counter that's washing this really interesting surface below it. This is something that you could visualize in Rhino, test out in Rhino, and then achieve in real life. Here, got a similar thing happening on the wall. Once you've got a trick that works, use it as much as you can. And some really careful virtuosic lighting happening, illuminating just the table, creating mood through these sconces. And this is really gorgeous. This is something that I think you can almost see like how this would have been one of their most important renderings, which translates to a really similar photo in the final project. And again, so careful selection of materials, this smoked mirror and the way that it reflects the material, the wood on the walls, and kind of disappears almost. And one of these I think had, not that one. So this guy, oh yeah, there's this material in here, this one on the wall, that I think you'd have a hard time getting a client to see the value of this sort of rough texture if you just show them a sample. But once you show them in Rhino what this looks like when you wash it from above and kind of the mood that it creates on the wall, then they start to understand in a new way. So that's really what Rhino is for. It's for you as a designer to develop your ideas, and it's to communicate those ideas to the team that you're working with. And most of all, it's really fun. It's fun to be in the space, to create the space, to zoom around in there. It's a lot more fun than AutoCAD, especially because you get to apply materials, and it's very intuitive as a way of working. Okay, so let's get started. If you open up the Rhino file for today, you will hopefully end up in something that looks like this. So you should see this screen, and let's just take a second to kind of orient ourselves to what Rhino is. So these are your your view windows, or whatever you want to call them. You've got a top view, perspective, front, and right. And if you double click on any one of these titles, it'll take you into a full screen version of that window. You can double click on it again to go back out. So let's double click on perspective here. And if you use the scroll wheel on your mouse, just like AutoCAD, just like SketchUp, that'll take you in and out. So that's how you zoom in and out, is using the scroll wheel. So we've done that. We've double clicked on perspective. If you double click again, you go back out. Double click to go back in. You can also type for view, and that'll take you back out to the standard for windows. And you can also use the view drop down menu up here. And if you go to set view, that'll take you to these standard views. Left and right are always going to be elevations. So these are orthographic projections. You won't see any perspective. You just see the elevation. That can be really useful when you're trying to position something just up and down, and you don't want it moving back and forth. So let's go back to perspective again. I don't know why the seaplane changes itself here, but you can fix that by going to View, Set Seaplane, World Top. That'll go back down. It's not the end of the world if it's the other way, but I would like it to be flat the way it's supposed to be. And this is the green axis and the red axis will show up again. That's sort of X and Y. And Z, of course, is the blue one, which is going to go up and down. All right, so let's zoom in here. Getting to know the interface. We've done views. And, oh yeah, display style. So right now I am in Ghosted. You can see there's wireframe, and in wireframe, you're just going to see these lines, no actual surfaces. Shaded looks like this. So you will see the surfaces, but you won't see through them. For modeling, I prefer to always work in Ghosted, because you can see what's a surface. You can also see the surfaces below it. So I just find Ghosted to be the easiest one for building things. And I tend to go back and forth between Ghosted and Rendered. Rendered looks like this. And it's just a simple portrayal of your model, and it will include materials. So you'll see the materials in the model in rendered view. And this is great for producing sketches, great for kind of visualizing what you're going to see before you do a more detailed rendering. There are some other options in here. There's pen. Pen is kind of trying to be like one of those SketchUp styles that's more of a sketch. I don't find it to be all that inspiring. So I don't really use pen very much. The one that I have used is Arctic. And Arctic is just, everything's going to be white. And I've used it in the past for when I'm looking at something really early on in the process, and I just want to see almost like if you made a model out of chipboard or something. So it's no materials, no textures, just shapes. But like I said, I pretty much only go back and forth between Ghosted and Rendered. So let's use Ghosted for now. So let's all set our display to Ghosted and move on to navigation. So the scroll wheel is how you move in and out. I think there is another, is it? Yeah, okay, if you hold down Alt and the right mouse button, that gives you a smoother zoom in and out. So this could be useful if you were like looking at something very detailed and like that's too far in and that's too far out. You could use this method with Alt and the right click to get it exactly where you need it. And then one thing that's important to know now, and I'll remind you again later, is Oh, I skipped something. So the way you orbit around, hold down the right mouse button and move your mouse. And this is your orbit. In SketchUp, I think it's when you hold down the scroll wheel. In Rhino, it's the right mouse button. So orbit away, fly around your model a little bit. Between orbit and zoom, this is pretty much everything you need to get around. Pan, I don't pan, just because I find it easier to zoom in and out, but you can hold down shift and use the right mouse button to pan. So shift, right click, and that's how you pan. All right, so one thing that does happen is if you're looking at this box, for example, and you're trying to get, you want to look maybe, say you want to look at the back of this box and you're orbiting around and it's going all over the place and it's just not really helping you. That's usually because the focal point of the camera is not where you need it to be. So one of the most important things to make your life easy is this way of working. So you go to View, you go to Set Camera, and you say Place Target. And I'll remind you of this again, don't worry. When you place target, it's going to say New Target Location, and you click somewhere on the object that you're working on. So I'm going to click on this corner of this box, left click, and then that makes that the center of rotation. So now it's much easier for me to orbit around this box. And if I'm manipulating it, if I'm turning this into like some kind of detailed cabinet, this is going to be so much easier than trying to zoom in and out and look at the part of it that I need to look at. So that is set target. It's View, set camera, place target. All right. Yep, that's all of that. So to practice, you can zoom in on this box here. You'll notice that it starts slowing down sometimes. It might be worth doing the set camera, place target, and looking somewhere on this box. And if you zoom in and if you use orbit, you'll be able to peek down underneath this corner. I hid something in there for your viewing pleasure. All right, you can pause your video while you do that. As we go along, just pause whenever you need to keep working, and then play again when it's time to keep going. All right, selection. So if you're familiar with AutoCAD, you'll know that there's two ways to select something. When you drag a box from the right to the left, everything that box touches gets selected. So when I drag a box from right to left, whatever that box touches, even if it's just a corner of it, it's going to select it. So if I were to drag just the corner here, I'm going to select both this rectangle and that box. If I drag a box like this, I get the whole box and the cone. The other way to select is to drag from left to right. And you'll see the box itself looks different. So when you go right to left, you get the dashed line. When you go left to right, you get the solid line. And when you go from left to right, only the things that are completely enclosed in the selection box get selected. So basically what that means is, like, if I want to select just this cone, I could just click on it, of course. Or I could drag a box from the left to the right over the cone, and it's going to select the cone, but it won't select the box. So if I went from right to left like this, it selects both the box and the cone. But if I go from left to right, I'm able to select just the cone. This is a big time saver. If you think about, like, if I need to select all of these cones in this line, if I go click, 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 clicks, yeah, I can do it, but it takes me, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. But if I drag a box from left to right like this, I get exactly what I need and nothing that I don't. So again, right to left, everything it touches gets selected. Left to right, only the things all the way inside the box get selected. So to practice, try selecting all of these objects, the box and all of the cones. So that's number one. Then try selecting just the cones. Then try selecting just the box. And then try selecting only the large cones. All right, pause your video, take a minute to practice, and I'll meet you back at the next one. All right, to modify your selections, you can hold down Shift, and then the next thing that you select will be added to the selection, or you can hold down Control, and the next thing that you select will be removed from your selection. So, for example, if I select all of these things down here, we've got some spheres, some boxes, and some cones. If I hold down Control and click on any of these things, or drag a box over them, they're removed from the selection, and you can tell because they're no longer highlighted. You can select things and hold down Shift, and then the next things that I select will be added to my selection. You can see if I don't hold down Shift, then it just starts a new selection. So I think AutoCAD just automatically keeps adding to your selections. It's not that way in Rhino. So if you want to add to the selection that you already have, you need to hold down Shift. So you can click or you can drag, either way, but it's Shift to add, Control to remove. Okay, so to try it out, select all of the cones, that's 1, 2, 3. Select all of the spheres, 1, 2, 3, and then select one of each shape. All right, I'll meet you at the next one. All right, the gumball is something unique to Rhino, which I hope that you learn to love. It makes things really easy to move around and manipulate. It's a little bit toy-like, but in the best possible way. So you can see at the bottom of the screen here, you've got some options, which we'll get into more in later lessons, but one of them is gumball. So if you click on it, that turns it off. When it's blue, it's on. You can also type the command gumball, and it'll say gumball is on. If you want it off, you type F or click on off. If you want it on, you type O or click on on. And if your gumball's on, when you click on an object, you'll see this thing that appears, and it's got some arrows, and it's got some arcs, and it's got these funny little dashed lines with handles on the end. All right, so this is an excellent tool to move things around and change their shape. So first thing is the arrows. If you click on an arrow and hold it, you can move shapes in the direction that the arrow goes. If you click once, you can enter a distance, and it'll move it in that distance. It could be a positive or a negative. And we'll get to more of that kind of more dimensioned modeling later on. For today, we're just going to be very general and have fun. So to practice the moving, I'd like you to take these 4 boxes and stack them to match what's on the right. So I'm going to take the middle-sized one, move it up, and move it over. And you see I went too high. All right. Doesn't have to be perfect for today's lesson. Close is good enough for today. I'm gonna move this guy over and down. And one thing you may see is this grid shape. So the grid moves things in 2 directions. So you can see that this one is blue and red. That means it's going to move it in the directions of the blue and the red arrow. If you look down on it, you'll see the grid changes to blue and green. So then it'll move things in the direction of the blue and green arrows. It's pretty straightforward. Really everything in Rhino is mostly quite intuitive. All right, so here's my stack. And I should mention that, like most software, Control Z is undo. So you can keep pressing Control Z to go back, to go back, to go back. And I think redo is Control Y. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to put the little one on top. Let's see if I've got it right. There we go. All right, we've got a very rectangular wedding cake. Okay. So that's the arrows and the grids, which help you move stuff around. You'll also